"Happy birthday to the best mom ever." That was the first thing I saw when I opened my phone. A picture of Micah, my only son, smiling beside Angela, his wife's mother, holding up a glass of champagne. They were standing on a dock, the lake behind them, shining like polished silver. A string of lights dangled above a white tablecloth, and a custom cake sat in the middle with gold lettering that read, "To Angela, you deserve the world." It was my birthday, too. I refreshed the screen thinking, maybe there had been a message for me. A text. A missed call. Anything. Nothing. I stood in the kitchen with a mug of coffee turning cold in my hand, staring at a celebration I wasn't invited to, for a woman who never raised him, never sat up all night with him through fevers, never worked triple shifts to get him through school. Just silence. Again. Same as last year. Same as the year before that. I thought about the cinnamon bread I'd baked that morning. My own birthday treat. I hadn't bothered with candles, just sliced a piece and sat alone at the table pretending it didn't matter. But this time, I didn't cry. I set the coffee down, opened my laptop, and typed without hesitation, "Lakefront property for sale." It felt ridiculous at first, like an indulgence meant for someone else's life. But the longer I scrolled, the steadier I became. These homes, sunlight on porches, docks, stretching into still water windows that opened to silence. Instead of excuses, they called to a part of me I hadn't heard from in years. The part that used to dream. The part that still believed I could belong somewhere. My birthday didn't need to be remembered by someone who only saw me when it was convenient. I could remember it myself. I could start over. I could go somewhere no one had to remember me because I would already be whole. I used to bake him cinnamon bread every October. No matter how tired I was, no matter how tight money got, I made sure he had something warm waiting when he got home from school. He'd walk in, nose in the air, smile wide. "You made it again." Like it was a surprise. Like he didn't know I'd always show up. Even when his dad left, even when I picked up extra shifts at the hospital just to keep the lights on, I showed up. One year, his junior year, I overheard him telling a friend about a pair of cleats he wanted. "Too expensive," he said, brushing it off. But I saw the way he looked at them in the store window. I sold my gold bracelet for them, the one my mother gave me on my wedding day. He opened the box and cried. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. And maybe back then he did. Now he throws catered parties for Angela. Last spring, they rented a lake house and hired a private chef. Micah toasted her at sunset, called her the most important woman in his life. Even my 60th, he said he had a work thing. I made myself dinner and went to bed early. The next day, I saw the photos. A vineyard. Angela smiling, holding a velvet box. Micah standing behind her, beaming. The caption, "She's always been the heart of this family." It took me a long time to stop telling myself it was just a misunderstanding, that he forgot, that he meant to call, that the post wasn't about replacing me, but forgetting isn't an accident when it happens every year, and love doesn't need reminders. So this year, I didn't wait. I didn't send him a message or drop hints about the date. I lit a candle, sliced the cinnamon bread I made for myself, and started looking for homes near the lake. Not out of revenge, out of relief, because I finally knew who I wasn't celebrating anymore. It wasn't the party, not the candles, not even the lake view they'd rented. It was the caption, "No one deserves the world more than you, Angela." Underneath it, Micah was smiling like a boy again, holding up a new designer purse, gold trim, and all, while Angela covered her mouth in surprise. The purse wasn't from his wife. It was from him. I read the caption twice, then 3 times. My name wasn't mentioned. No thank you. No tag. No nod to the woman who had poured her life into his. It wasn't even my birthday anymore. Not in that world. The phone was plugged in, but the charger grew hot in my hand. I set it down before I dropped it. For a long time, I just stood in my kitchen breathing, staring at the tile floor. Then, like something automatic, I opened my banking app. I hadn't looked at it in months, maybe a year. There it was. $75,000. The nursing injury settlement from County General. I'd slipped a disc lifting a patient too heavy for one nurse, but no one else had been on shift. I'd finished the round, drove home half numb, and spent 6 weeks lying flat while the hospital lawyer negotiated the payout. I never touched the money. I told myself it was for Micah, for the future, for just in case. Turns out the emergency wasn't his. It was mine. I closed the app and walked over to my tiny desk in the corner of the living room. I pulled out a pad of paper and started a list, places I'd once loved, places I'd never gone. I wrote Vermont at the top. Then I circled it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Done waiting. Done wondering. Done trying to earn a seat at a table I paid for with everything I had. And by the end of the night, I had bookmarked 3 cottages. "Rent's been rough," Micah said one evening over the phone, his voice low tight. "I hate to ask Mom. Just until things even out." I didn't even hesitate. I wired the money the next morning, 6 months' worth of rent, paid in full. Didn't tell a soul, not even my closest friend. It wasn't about pride. It was about love. Quiet, ordinary, unconditional love. That was a year ago. Now here I was, staring at a different screen, the light casting sharp shadows in my dark kitchen. Angela's birthday cruise. Micah holding up a glass of champagne on the deck of a brand new boat. Angela wearing a sun hat. Her name on a banner behind them. Hashtag Love You Mom caption. Thanks to everyone who helped make it happen. Everyone except me. The camera panned over gourmet food custom decorations, laughing guests. I paused the video and leaned closer, just to be sure. The boat was new, not rented, not borrowed, purchased. I stood in my small duplex, taking it all in the chipped counter, the peeling cabinet hinge, the curtains I sewed back in 1992, when Micah still called me Mama. They hadn't been changed since. And I whispered to no one, "You bought her a boat with my rent money." It wasn't the money. It was the rewriting of the story. They made it look like I never existed, like Angela was the foundation, the provider, the one who stepped in and saved them. But I was the one who took unpaid leave when Micah had surgery at 12. I was the one who skipped meals so he could go to basketball camp. And now I was the one watching my sacrifices show up in someone else's celebration. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat up at the kitchen table and opened the listings again. Found the yellow cottage. Near the lake. Quiet porch. No one else's name on the mailbox. And this time, I didn't hesitate to email the agent. I found it in 2 clicks. A pale yellow cottage tucked near the Vermont lakes, small but sunlit, with a wooden porch that wrapped around like an embrace. A dock just wide enough for 1 chair. Silence included. The real estate agent's voice crackled through the line. "Are you ready to buy?" I didn't pause. "Cash," I said. 2 weeks later, the keys were in my hand. I didn't tell anyone. Not Micah. Not anyone from church. This wasn't a declaration, it was a retreat. One I didn't need permission for. I bought new linens, not expensive, but soft. Crisp white with pale blue stripes. I unpacked my dishes, the same ones I'd used for years, and set them neatly in open shelving. Every morning, I poured my own coffee and stepped onto the porch barefoot, letting the cool wood meet my feet. I didn't fill the silence with calls or music. I just listened to the lake breathe. There were no voices asking me to explain, no one telling me what I owed them. I slept better that first night than I had in years. I woke up early, baked a small peach tart, and sat out on the dock with my plate on my knees. I didn't cry. I didn't scroll. I didn't wait. Instead, I set my phone on the railing, angled toward the porch, and took one photo. Me, coffee cup in hand. Lake behind me, hair a little wild, face calm. No caption, no filters. I posted it without thinking and put the phone away. Micah called 3 minutes later. I watched the screen light up, his name pulsing. Then I let it go dark again. Not because I was angry, because I had nothing left to explain. I was done proving I mattered. And as the sun warmed the porch, I realized this was the first birthday I hadn't been forgotten. Because I had remembered myself. 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails. Then the text arrived, short and polished. Let's talk. Come to dinner Sunday. No happy birthday. No, we're sorry. Just control dressed up as concern. I went. Not for them, for closure. Angela opened the door, arms outstretched like we were old friends. You look great. We missed you. You didn't answer your phone. I gave her a small smile, stepped inside. Micah was already at the table, 2 wine glasses poured. He stood halfway, like he wasn't sure if he should hug me or stay seated. He chose neither. Dinner was roasted salmon, white napkins, cloth not paper. I recognized the effort and the performance. Micah cleared his throat midway through the salad. So, about that house, he said lightly. You didn't say anything. I placed my fork down, careful and steady. You didn't ask. Silence dropped like a pane of glass. No shatter. Just stillness. Angela recovered first. She let out a light laugh, fingers brushing her necklace. It's just kind of sudden, isn't it? I mean, you didn't use your savings, did you? I looked straight at my son. He looked at his plate. I didn't know it needed approval, I said calmly. Angela sipped her wine. It's just unexpected, that's all. And the photo, it kind of felt like a message. It was, I said. To myself. They weren't ready for that. I watched Micah shift in his chair, jaw tense. Angela started a new sentence, something about family, always talking things through, but I'd stopped listening. I thought about the quiet dock, the early mist on the lake, the way the porch light glows at dusk. I thought about how no one had to perform there. I finished my meal napkin folded neatly beside my plate. No thank yous. No small talk. Just a clear sense of something ending and something better already begun. Micah followed me out to the porch, the door swinging shut behind him with a soft click. He stood a few feet away, hands shoved deep into his pockets, eyes darting from the floorboards to my face. You didn't have to go buy something like that, he muttered, the edge in his voice, softened by uncertainty. Didn't I? I asked, keeping my gaze on the lake beyond the yard. He shifted shoulders, hunched. It just felt dramatic. I lifted my coffee to my lips. It felt quiet to me. He hesitated, then said it. You could have asked us for help. I turned fully to him, meeting his eyes with a steadiness that made him blink. Like you asked me when you used my money for Angela's boat. His jaw dropped slightly. You knew I know more than you think. I said, my voice calm but final. I know exactly where my sacrifice went, and I know how long I've been invisible in this family. He opened his mouth, closed it again, as if every excuse had turned to dust. I didn't mean he began, but the words never finished. I'm not here to hear what you didn't mean. I cut in gently. I'm here to decide what I do next. The silence between us swelled heavy and electric. He shifted again, hands gripping the railing, but he didn't try to stop me. I set my coffee cup down, walked back inside, and left my plate on the table where the half-eaten dessert still sat. I didn't say goodbye. Angela's voice floated from the kitchen, calling for Micah, but he didn't move. I picked up my bag from the chair, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out the front door into the night. The porch light caught the edge of my car door as I opened it, the sound of the lake already in my mind as I turned the key. Angela texted the next morning. I hope we didn't hurt you. You've always been like a second mom. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I deleted it. Not because I was angry, anger had come and gone. I deleted it because it didn't belong. A second mom. As if I'd just floated nearby all these years, a backup character. As if the scraped knees, the parent-teacher conferences, the dinners stretched on coupons had never happened. I opened a drawer in the cottage and pulled out an old photo envelope. There was Micah, 10-years-old, braces flashing, holding a bunch of red balloons I'd stayed late at the hospital 3 nights to afford. His cheeks were rounder than his smile unguarded. The sign behind him read, "Happy birthday, buddy." He used to call me his hero. I didn't cry, but I did sit on the edge of the bed for a while trying to remember when exactly I became invisible. It hadn't been one big moment, just a series of smaller ones, forgotten texts, missed calls, invitations that never came. A week passed. No more messages, no apology, no knock at the door. So I bought a can of paint. Coral. Not soft, not loud, just warm. Alive. I painted the cottage door with slow, steady strokes. Watched the wood absorb the color like it had been waiting. Then I hung a sign just beneath the bell. Come in, if you mean it. No more reminders. No more performance. I brewed coffee the next morning and watched the steam curl toward the window as the lake shifted in the breeze. For the first time, I felt the house breathing with me, not holding anyone else's silence, not aching for someone to remember me. I set an old photo of Micah on the mantel, not out of nostalgia, but because I needed to see it one last time. Then I tucked it away in a drawer, and in the space it left behind, I lit a candle. 2 months passed before anyone in the family reached out. It was Elodie, my niece. She called on a Thursday afternoon, said she was passing through Vermont, and asked if she could stop by. I almost said no, but something in her voice sounded honest, unscripted. When she arrived, she brought a small bouquet of tulips wrapped in brown paper. I didn't know what color you liked, she admitted, brushing hair from her face. I like all of them, I said, taking the bundle gently. We sat in the kitchen. I poured 2 mugs of coffee and cut slices of apple loaf I'd made that morning. Elodie took a bite, then exhaled through her nose like it was the first warm thing she'd had in days. After a pause, she looked up. Micah told the family you moved out of spite. I didn't flinch. I moved out of peace, I said quietly. That's not the same thing. She nodded, slowly, setting her cup down. He's angry you didn't leave the inheritance to him. I got up and opened the side drawer where I kept the new documents. The trust was simple, my assets, my terms. I handed it to her and pointed to the last page. To be distributed to those who show up, even when there's no celebration. Elodie read it in silence. Then her eyes welled and she closed the folder carefully. I didn't come here for money, she said. I know, I replied. She stood, walked around the table and hugged me. No words, just warmth. That's how I knew she meant it. Later that evening after she left, I folded a spare quilt and placed it in the guest room. Just in case someone ever came again, not to take, not to question, but simply to be here. I lit the porch light and left the door unlocked, not for Micah, not for anyone in particular, just for the possibility of love without performance. Then I made myself a second cup of coffee and sat on the porch until the sky turned lavender. The cottage smells of brewed coffee and pine. The windows stay open most mornings, letting in air that feels like a beginning. I hung one of Micah's old drawings on the fridge last week, a crayon sketch of a dragon signed with shaky letters and a crooked heart. I didn't hang it to remember the boy he was. I hung it to remind myself of the woman I became, the one who poured love into every meal, every ride to school, every scraped knee and overdue bill. The one who still wakes early not for anyone else, but because she wants to see the mist lift off the lake. I don't need reminders to feel full anymore. I set my own table now, sometimes alone, sometimes with a neighbor or a traveler passing through, but always on my terms, always with peace. I stopped checking for messages, stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen, stopped waiting for someone to knock who never intended to come. The lake is still today. I sat beside it for an hour this morning, watching the sun rise slow and sure. It cast my reflection long across the water, soft and steady, and I looked at her, the woman, staring back, and thought, this is what surviving looks like. Not bitter, not loud, not waiting to be chosen, just alive. There's no need to explain myself here, no performance to keep up. The cottage holds my silence like a friend, and the wind through the trees hums a song that sounds a little like freedom. Micah hasn't called again. But Elodie sent a postcard, just a watercolor of a dock, and a line that read, "It's peaceful, where you are." She was right. I tucked it behind a magnet next to the dragon drawing, poured another cup of coffee, and opened the front door to let in the light. The cottage stays quiet, and for the first time in years, so do I.